And they said, no, they said she has to be with, you know, the children her own age, because that's what's most important. She needs to be with the kids her own age. And so she can't, you know, skip a grade. And my mom's like, well, that's not going to work, because she's going to be bored. She already knows this stuff. And so she made the very bold move. At that time, this was in the early 80s, so I'll go ahead and date myself. And homeschooling was very unheard of then. So she made a very bold move and decided to homeschool me instead.
That is so beautiful, though, because the fact that she did not have experience as a teacher, and you know, and those times, that's fantastic. That is so fantastic.
Thank you. I think so.
Wow, that's brilliant. It's just really, I know we came to talk about your journey, right? But I didn't know your journey was so fascinating.
That's part of it. No, that's part of it. But what I hope it's inspiring to other people is that you don't have to have a teaching background. You know, it's about, if you care about your child, and you will invest the time and effort to discover the things that they need as an individual, then any parent can make it a success.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I think I've got a little bit more lag.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for that. No, it's a natural. Did you think it was just a you're frozen? Is the fact that you have been homeschooled, do you think that it was just a natural transition for you to homeschool your children?
Yes. Yes. So very, very similarly, you know, we have children, and you know, it's just important to us that that we keep them home, and that we continue to build our relationship with them, instead of sending them off for hours and hours in the day to let strangers do that job. And so it was a natural choice for us. My husband, you know, similar to my mom, had not had the best experience in the public school system, and so we wanted to do that differently. And my positive experience with homeschooling, it was just a natural choice for us to do that.
Right. So in terms of, you know, one of the other thing is you could also do it in terms of a comparison how your homeschooling was and you bringing up your children in terms of homeschool. How different would you say that these two experiences have been?
Oh, that's such a good question, and nobody has ever asked me that. I would say that there is a lot that's similar, but the main standout difference now is that there's just so much more for homeschoolers. When I was homeschooled, there was very little resources, very little community, and now it's almost the reverse problem. There's almost too many resources because it's overwhelming, and there's so much you can do, and so many choices, and so many curricula. And so so now I would say that that's the biggest difference, is that, you know, day to day in the house, it's very much the same. You know, we sit and we read and we do our lessons, and, you know, so there's a lot of it that looks the same day to day, but in the grand scheme of homeschooling, it's so different now, because my kids fortunately just have so much more opportunity to, you know, engage in extracurricular activities and online classes, and so many more resources now than there used to be.
Thank you for that. So what is your mom saying now that she's seeing her grandchildren being home educated, and when she was home educated, how much input does she have?
Well, gosh, I share a lot with her, but I guess I don't go to her for advice very much. I still know them best. And so, you know, and each one of them is different. That's the thing, is that, you know, because my mom educated one, and I've now got two. And so even within my house, my daughters have different educations, because they're different people and they have different needs.
Yes.
So even within that, it's very fine-tuned as to the experience that each child gets.
Yeah. So some of the questions that, you know, I would normally ask in terms of what do you feel that traditional education system lack, and how is it, how is it not equipping your child or your children? Your experience was not of within the education system, but it's only your later years that you actually went into the education system. So from those experiences, how do you think and feel, in terms of the education system? How do you think traditional education, how you think it is not preparing children out there for the wide world? What do you think on that?
Yes, so much there to unpack. I mean, we could take that question in about a million different directions, but I mean, one of the biggest ones is a lack of a personalized education, the lack of the ability for them to follow their interests. And in fact, a lot of times, one of the biggest benefits of homeschooling is that it really allows parents to capitalize on the learning moments that are found within a child's interests, which I think are devalued and discounted a lot. We tend to think of child's interests as playtime rather than learning moments, but that they can really be leveraged to create learning moments if parents will be creative and dive into that. And that's something that there's a big lack of in the traditional school system. There's a path and there's a curriculum and there's tests that have to be given and there's, certain standards that have to be maintained. And that's the focus rather than on the individual child and giving them that personalized education that meets their needs, their learning modalities, their interests, what they want to do in the future, their potential career paths that they want to be on. And so that is, outside of other considerations, like just for instance, safety and mental health and things like that, that's the biggest reason. That's the biggest thing that I think that the system does not provide.
That is so true. Because as a teacher myself, it is so challenging to meet every child individual needs. As much as we talk about differentiation, it is not realistic in the full practical sense of the word. Because there's no way you could differentiate for, let's say, if you have 30 children in your class. There's no way, it's not practical. Even though you do it as much as you can, let's say on majority basis, you're still not meeting the needs of those children. Because I teach older students, so students who are next step would be university. Some classes I might have 20, some classes I might have 15. Even in one of the classes now I'm teaching, I have 12 and 15. I still cannot meet the individual needs. It's not practical, not realistic.
And that does boil down to something you mentioned earlier, I think before we were on, about being purpose-based. And it's because a system has a different purpose. The system is trying to move a whole group of students through the system sort of together and to have like the best outcome for the most students that they can, rather than the purpose of a homeschool, which is an individual.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That is so true, because we most saying that we differentiate. I think that need to be qualified to an extent. And sometimes you cannot even really differentiate because you don't have the time to do that as effectively as you should or you can. So that's some of the thing, in terms of it as well. Another factor that we know in terms of in primary school, children are very, very creative. But when they get to secondary school, they've lost all of that. So how do you maintain that curiosity and that creativity in your children in terms of homeschooling them?
Sure. It's about following interests, interest-led learning, and about teaching them that it's more than about the outcome of a test score. When they when you can take the time to dive into a particular topic more because they're interested in it, or maybe not skip, but sort of lightly cover topics that they're less interested in, and move on to something else a little bit quicker when you don't have this set schedule that you have to follow. But you can then allow them to really explore those things. It really helps. And when they know that everything isn't boiled down to a performance on a standardized test, but that it's about exploring learning, they maintain that curiosity and that love for learning that children naturally have, because it doesn't become about the system and about keeping up with the system anymore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you. And also feel that what you've said is so powerful, because it also reduced the need for competition.
Yes.
And what you find is when children compete with each other, for me, this is something I see all the time. One of the most damaging thing, some children, it actually could make their confidence plummet because they feel they're not good enough. Whereas I do feel that in homeschooling, they don't have that. They're an individual being taught on an individual basis, and they're going to the level at which they're at, and they don't have to compete with anyone else. And they don't have to feel that they're not good enough. I feel that's one of the things the education system does. You want to speak on that, please?
Yes, absolutely. And you know, one of the things that I try to coach parents to instill is an ownership in their children over their own education. That their education is theirs, and it's theirs to guide, and it's theirs to expand and to be proud of. And when a child feels like they are in ownership over their education, it just motivates them to do more and to learn more and to take pride in themselves and their accomplishments. And it becomes not about just checking the boxes off that they've done their homework and they've done this and they've done that, but that they feel like they have a part in it and that they're invested in it.
So how do you get them to take ownership though?
Well, so that's where I coach parents to really rethink the idea of what it means to be a teacher. I think that we sort of have this stereotypical mindset of a teacher standing up in front of a class at the board, expounding all of their knowledge to the students. And I think we tend to put the emphasis on what the teacher is doing instead of rethinking learning and the learning process in terms of it's what the child is doing. You can't force somebody to learn something. The child has to be the one to do the work to learn something, and they should receive the credit for it. The teacher, I encourage them to take on more of the role of a coach. It's funny that you use the word coach, because that's what I encourage parents to be, is to think of themselves not so much as teachers, but more as coaches, and to think about coming alongside their children as a partner and really forming a partnership relationship with their children to assist them. They're like their learning assistants, and they're there to help their children access the resources that they need, and to help them when they, meet something, that a challenge that they can't get past on their own, and to help them and put them in the driver's seat, give them the credit for it. And I believe that as a parent begins to do that, it naturally moves that child into an ownership position over their education, and they begin to take it more seriously, and they begin to feel, that pride and feel in charge of it, because their parents aren't there as an authoritative figure, sort of pounding the knowledge into their heads. They're there assisting them with pursuing the education that the child essentially wants to pursue.
It's you're thinking on freezing. Yeah, that is so true. Thank you very much, because even in school, one of the things I'm trying to do within the education system, within my students, is getting them to take ownership. and also getting them to group of them at 3 o'clock today. Because I keep on saying to them, you need to start taking ownership and be critical thinkers, because the education system doesn't allow them to do that. It wants the
Yes.
teachers to think for them. And I cannot think for children. I cannot think for them. That's too heavy, you know.
Yes. When there's a right answer, then it takes away their ability to think critically and to have a voice. If there's a certain right answer and that's the only acceptable answer, then it just becomes about them parroting the right answer, not about critical thinking. And they learn very quickly then that their own inner thoughts and their own voice on subjects doesn't matter. When they're in an environment that doesn't allow that.
Mhm. Oh my goodness, thank you. How do you feel that homeschooling or home education, how does it prepare them for the world of where traditional education have failed them? Assuming traditional education have failed them.
Right, right. You know, I think that a lot of children they do marvelously in traditional education, and certainly it's on an individual basis. But I guess this is kind of like the socialization question. Homeschoolers get asked a lot, like, well, how are they socialized if they're, homeschooled? And so I tend to explain it that that homeschooling can be an even better preparation for the real world because it is more like the real world. And they're interacting, homeschoolers in general, they follow their parents on errands throughout the day. They're sort of doing school within real life as it goes along. Like a lot of parents work from home, so my children get to witness, my work day as well. They go to co-op, and their homeschool kids are a variety of different ages. Whereas in a classroom is a really clinical setting. It's a group of students, all from the same area, all from the same generally socioeconomical background, all the same age. And so homeschooling just tends to mimic the real world a little more than a classroom does. And so in that way, I feel like it's a fine preparation for the real world.
Yeah, it is so true. It is so true, because you could actually, because the fact that everything that you're doing, the children have seen it. And so, so that's exactly what's happening in terms of, they're seeing you fill in application forms, you're supporting them. So they're actually seeing practical things that is happening outside in the real world. Whereas in formal education, that is challenging because some of them, they don't even know how to fill in an application form.
Yes, yeah, good example. If you have to do a home repair, the children are there and they can help you with it. And it's a lot of practical hands-on living.
Yeah. Which is really, really, which is really powerful and which is natural,
Exactly.
what they need to do. Okay, thank you very much. What are the challenge and triumph of homeschooling stroke home educating? What are some of the exciting moments? What are some of the, oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness, right. So, okay, I'll start with the challenges. So everybody has those days where something, a concept or something is just not going across and somebody's just not feeling it, and there's tears or frustration, or there's a resistant child who just doesn't want to do school or do a particular subject. Like these are such common challenges that all homeschool parents face. So the triumphs are the moments where you rise above that. And that is the good thing about homeschooling, is that you get the freedom to take a break if you need it and say, okay, we're going to step back from this. We're going to try a different approach on a different day. We're going to try a different curriculum. And the triumphs are then, when that child like finally learns to read, and after that was a struggle, or they finally get this math concept, or they find something that they're really, really interested in. And it's like that moment where they suddenly take off on their own and start, next thing you know, you look over and they're studying something on their own that you've never even asked them to study. But they're so interested in it that they just can't get enough. Those are the triumphs and the great moments and the moments we live for.
Yeah, and those are the aha moments, and oh my goodness, this is brilliant.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much. What 3 tips can you give anybody who wants to homeschool or home educate their children or child, but it's a little bit apprehensive and don't feel that they're knowledgeable enough or is able to do it? What 3 tips would you give them?
Absolutely. Well, you are. It doesn't matter your background in education. You absolutely can, because again, if you care, just all it takes, and every parent has this, is that they care about their child, and then you can find the resources that you need to do it. But I would say that tip number 1 is to focus on the relationship. Focus on forming that partnership relationship with your child. Don't look at them as this to-do on your list that you have to check off school for the day. Look at them as a human being that you want to build a really close, trusting relationship with, and work on that partnership, that learning partnership with your child. And everything else will fall into place around that. I would say another huge tip is don't make the mistake of trying to do school at home. Don't try to replicate the school environment in your home. Instead, make it unique to your family and your child, and to what works for the flow and the routine of your family, rather than trying to mold it into a miniature version of school. And then, goodness, I would say that the next most important thing, the 3rd tip, is to remember to be adaptable, because children change. We all change. Things that work beautifully one week. I think that a common mistake with homeschoolers is that they find something that works really well, and then they commit themselves to it, and they think that it's going to always continue to work really well, whether it's a curriculum or whether it's a schedule or whatever. It's going to change, and one day you're going to wake up and it's not going to work anymore, and you have to be adaptable to recognize when that happens and when you need to make a change, because it changes all the time. So adaptability is key.
Thank you. It's interesting, right? Because views with home educators, homeschoolers, one of the things that constantly says, and it comes out in the tip, do not try to replicate the school system. It doesn't work. The teacher, but she began homeschooling her children. Replicate the classroom, and then she realized that's not working, and she has to throw everything away. And she said, I just start letting them leave. And I think that is so important, because it is so easy for us to actually replicate the education system, the same education system we don't want our children to be in. We're still trying to replicate it, because it's like not having trust in ourselves, isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly. Amen. It is exactly that. Yes. Trust yourself. Trust yourself, and trust your child.
Yeah. Self and trust your child. And I think that is so powerful, because that's something a lot of homeschool home educators, they're not confident enough to trust themselves and trust their children or child. And it's important. And it's really nice that you actually, put that out there, because I think they need to hear that from someone who is actually really on it.
And it's scary. It is scary, because you have to trust that they're going to care about their education, but they do. Children, I think that that's one of the big misconceptions is, well, if I don't make children learn this, like, how will they be educated? They care about their own educations and their futures, and they want to learn things. And it is scary to trust. But if you have that trust in the children, they will not disappoint.
Thank you for that. Have you got anything else you want to say to us?
Just thank you so much for having me.
Right. Thank you very much for sharing your double experiences, because you share the experience of you being a product of a homeschool family, and then you know home educating and homeschooling your children. It's just fascinating, because you could actually say, here I am. I was homeschooled, home educated by my parents, and I went on, went later on into the education system, and I gained 2 degrees, and now I'm doing that. That's just so beautiful. So therefore, seeing that, a lot of, prospective parents would think, yes, it does work. So
It
I could
does.
trust myself a bit more,
Yes.
because your mother was, in terms of, as you say, how the resource she had must have been really minimal.
Yes,
You know,
very.
exactly. And the fact that you are a product, it's just brilliant. It's just fascinating. And I really thank you for sharing that aspect, which reinforces in people's head that it's possible and there's so many things you could get out of it.
Yes, so many. The sky is the limit. Endless possibilities.
Exactly, exactly. Thank you so very much for sharing your experience with us. Greatly appreciated. And thank you very much for accepting the offer to come and share your experience and your knowledge, etc., with us. And thank you guys for listening. It's been a fantastic experience yet again with another home school at home educator that is actually share her experience with us. So we actually see a different perspective, because the fact that she herself was and now she's doing it, it's just wonderful. So thank you, everybody. And tomorrow we have another show of female educators. This time we are sharing the journey of educators, what it was like before COVID, during COVID, and now on the other side. And what is like now being in the classroom, business as usual. Forgot there was a pandemic that have just taken place, and also forgot that the children are 2 years under the development age. And that's something we as educators need to be very consciously aware, because they've lost 2 years where they did not develop as they should have done with the peers or other aspect, because there was just uncertainty. Whereas with homeschool and home education, they just continue on their journey. But our children didn't, because we didn't know what to do with them. So tomorrow we'll be sharing another educator's journey, what it was like, etc. So you guys, please tune in to hear what we have to say. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.